Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 2015 Unity Forum. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. Yes. Okay, so perception. Perception is the way we interact with the world around us and the people in it. But it also makes me wonder, how many legs does that elephant have? Whether this is a woman's face or a man playing a saxophone. Unfortunately, perception also makes some of us think that these are gangbangers. He's a terrorist. He probably runs a drug cartel somewhere in Mexico. And she's probably in an abusive relationship. So perception works by taking in sensory images and understanding them via our beliefs and our past experiences, oftentimes even distorting the images we see. Although perception helps us live full lives, it can sometimes lead us astray and turn a man reaching for his wallet into a man reaching for a gun. But on a lighter note, perception also helps us decide who we think we can get along with, who we think is smart, who might share our interests, and who we think could make a good friend. But perception doesn't always play matchmaker. Many times it informs us about people we think we should avoid and people we don't think we can get along with. Now, perception can sometimes help us, well, oftentimes help us lead full lives and experience the world around us. However, as we saw, it can sometimes be deceiving. If you haven't figured it out yet, my point is that people oftentimes aren't the people you may perceive them to be. Oftentimes, it is our misconceptions of people that stop us from building meaningful relationships. It is misconceptions and errors in perception that lead to deaths of Mike Brown, Eric Garner, John Crawford III, and so on. Today, we are here to discuss unity and how we, as student leaders, can foster it on our campus. Perception, I believe, is a vital factor in building relationships with others, but is not the only one. Today, we hope you all can walk away with new ideas of what unity means to you and how you may be able to take away new ideas about how to best promote it on our campus and in your individual lives. So, thank you.
Everybody. We give Shari another round of applause. It is my privilege and honor to welcome everybody to this year's Unity Forum. My name is Dr. Zebulon Miletsky. Most of you know me because a lot of my students are here tonight. Yeah, give that a round of applause. You know, about that, we just started a few weeks ago, and so a lot of you guys are new students, and it means that much more to me that you made it out and came out tonight on faith, and it really, really means a lot to me to see so many familiar faces in the room. This year, in the planning process for Unity Forum, we talked about a number of things. We wanted it to be dynamic. We wanted it to be real. We wanted this to be an honest discussion about issues that are relevant to students on this campus, not only here, but in our communities, this campus, and the world. And there's much going on, as we all know, in our world at this time. And so we, in doing that, discussed who could we bring here, who could we have come to this campus to lead us in an honest discussion, a frank discussion about some of the things that are happening in our world. And that led us to one name, which is Kevin Powell, who is here with us this evening. And I think we should. And it's my privilege to introduce Mr. Powell, or Kevin, as I know him. Kevin Powell has one of those people who has had many careers over one career, and has been actually in the room, if you will, and on the scene at the birth of many important movements, hip-hop being one of them, social activism, and journalism, hip-hop journalism, that is. Kevin Powell is one of the most acclaimed political, cultural, literary, and hip-hop voices in America today. He is the author of 11 books, including Barack Obama, Ronald Reagan, and the Ghost of Dr. King, blogs and essays. Some of us academic folks would kill to have like 1 or 2 books, you know. He's a very busy man. Among his upcoming books will be a memoir of his very interesting and difficult childhood and youth to be released in 2015 by Simon & Schuster. And in 2016, he will publish a biography of Tupac Shakur, the late rapper and controversial American icon. Kevin Powell is one of those people who you might see when you turn on CNN, or you might see on MSNBC, or any number of other venues when hip-hop or youth activism or young people are discussed. He has been a steady and constant voice of conscience in this country about social justice and about issues pertaining to social justice. His accomplishments are so numerous, and we could go on and on with some of the things that he's done. But I just wanted to sort of speak from the heart. The organization that he runs, or he's president of and founded, BK Nation, is an organization that's pulling together folks who, many of whom, you know, like are very picky, are choosy about which causes and which political things they would like to get involved in. As you know, we're all very busy, and the people that he pulls together are people who are conscious in their choice to do the kind of work that he has led and blazed a trail for. I've never been to a BK Nation meeting or event where we didn't talk about solutions and actions at the end, action steps. I've never been to a BK Nation meeting where we didn't feel a sense of almost of being in church. I've never been to any BK Nation events where every person in the room did not feel valued, welcomed, and loved. And that, to me, is a very rare thing. So without any further ado, I'd like to bring up Kevin Powell, BK Nation, and BK is in the house.
Thank you. What's up? What's up? Can we turn it down a little bit? Hello? How's that? It's not mad echoey, right?
Was that all right?
All right. How y'all doing?
All right.
I'm good, thank you. I'm really going to say a few things, but most importantly, we're going to hear the students' voices. Let's give them a round of applause. That's what's important. I want to thank God first and foremost for this opportunity. I'm a Christian, but I'm never so religiously arrogant to assume that everyone in the room is a Christian. If there's Muslims in this room, if there's Jewish sisters and brothers in this room, if you're Buddhist, if you're Rastafarian, even if you're atheistic or agnostic, you have that right as well. I just hope we all can say that we're sisters and brothers. Can we agree to that? Yeah. Right on. I want to thank Dr. Miletsky and Dr. Watson. Let's give them a round of applause. Where are they? All right. I want to definitely thank the Black History Month Planning Committee for having me. I know y'all had my sister, Soledad O'Brien, here the other day, and we've done a lot of work together, and I got mad love for her. I want to thank the Office of Multicultural Affairs, led by Dr. Cheryl Hamilton. Did she change her name? Someone gave me the wrong name. Oh, it's 2 Cheryls. Whoops. Cheryl Chambers. I apologize. Well, y'all forgive me for that. All right. Who runs the Department of Africana Studies? I ain't going to say the name then. That's right. Dr. Tracy Walters. Thank you. Dexter Bailey, and Stony Brook University, and all the students here. I just want to thank y'all for this opportunity. I want to say a few things that I think are some food for thought, you know, since we're students, and we're all students for life. And one of the things I'll say, and I appreciate Zeb, the introduction, thank you so much for that. The BK in BK Nation does not stand for Brooklyn, even though I'm from Brooklyn. I wish it did. It doesn't stand for Burger King, you know what I'm saying? It stands for building knowledge, you know, because we're all students and teachers for the rest of our lives. Are y'all with me out there? You know, and so we're gathered here for a few reasons. February, obviously, and y'all have talked about this already, is Black History Month. And one of the misnomers is that Black history is just for Black folks. I mean, literally, I've been on the road since January 8th, and after this, I got a few days off that I'm going to Ohio, to Michigan, to California, just nonstop travel, doing speeches and workshops, and as Dr. Molesky said, you know, this is about action steps and solutions. Can we bring the mic down just a little bit, please? Thank you. And a lot of folks I realize out there have no idea who created Black History Month, you know? And this has been kind of sad to me over the last couple of weeks, because also people have been asking the question, do you think Black History Month is still important? Is it still relevant? That's like asking if Women's History Month is irrelevant. Am I right, ladies? You know what I'm saying? And it's like asking if Jewish history is relevant. Is Italian history relevant? Is Filipino or Chinese or Japanese or Native American history is relevant? All of us are equals in this room, which means all of our histories are relevant, right? Are y'all with me? Which means, you know, we have to ask a fundamental question, whether you went to public schools and you were miseducated, or whether you paid to be miseducated and they called them private schools. If you grew up learning that Columbus discovered America, and they conveniently left out that he and other so-called explorers actually committed genocide against indigenous people that we now call Native Americans, you were miseducated. If you grew up being taught that Washington was the father of this country, and it was conveniently left out that he and many of the other founding fathers, heck, all of them, and 12 of the 44 United States presidents were slave owners and slave masters and actually engaged in slave trafficking, then you were miseducated. You know, if you grew up learning that Lincoln freed the slaves, which is not true at all, you know, then you were miseducated. You know, there were speeches where he sometimes was against slavery. There were speeches where he was sometimes for slavery. And the reason why he eventually pushed through the Emancipation Proclamations, because the Union looked like it was going to lose to the South, and they needed some soldiers. There were 200,000 Black folks who fought in the Union Army. Are y'all with me out there? And so Black history was created, which is American history, because you can't separate the two, just like you can't separate American music from Black music, because if you take away hip-hop, soul, rock and roll, blues, spirituals, reggae, reggaeton, salsa, calypso, merengue, y'all with me out there, you know, you would lose a lot of music in this country over the last 100 years. And so when we talk about Black History Month, it's actually American history. And if you call yourself an American, and one reason I'm so fired up is because I was coming here from Brooklyn, I listened to 1010 Winds, and Rudolph Giuliani, the former mayor, who was a racist when he was mayor, so many Black and Latino males were blown away by the police, and he would get on the news and say, oh, they weren't a choir boy anyway. This is the stuff he would say. Actually had the audacity to get on the news today, over the last 2 days, and say that Barack Obama doesn't even like his own country. You know? And this is part of the reason why we have issues in this country, because there's nothing wrong with ignorance. Ignorance just means that you don't know something. But there's something wrong with what I call enthusiastic ignorance, where not only are you ignorant, but you are rolling in that ignorance, and you're spouting that ignorance in front of people. And to me, sisters and brothers, education is about love. A man named Carter G. Woodson created what became known as Black History Month. Carter G. Woodson didn't even get out of high school until he was 22 years old, you know? He was the second person of African descent in this country to graduate from Harvard University after W.E.B. Du Bois, you know? And this man decided to dedicate his life to scholarship, to history, to studying who we were, because he realized we as Black people, or other people, think about your own cultural background, were conveniently left out of the textbooks, out of history, and depicted in the most despicable, stereotypical ways in the mass media culture. In fact, when he was doing this work 100 years ago, the #1 entertainment in this country was called the minstrel show. Y'all know what I'm talking about, blackened faces, as if Black is not attractive. We know Black is beautiful, just like everyone else is beautiful, we're beautiful too. Exaggerated lips, as if big lips are not beautiful. Beautiful lips are beautiful. You know, as if our natural hair wasn't beautiful, as if our skin wasn't beautiful, any of it. And he said, you know what, we're gonna flip the script, because this is what leadership does. We're gonna start teaching a different way. He wrote many books. One of his most famous books was called, what, y'all? The Miseducation of the Negro. Lauryn Hill, in 1998, made an album called The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, because she read, because she studied, because she traveled, she knew who Carter G. Woodson was, and she was inspired enough to take that title and remix it for the hip-hop era into the title of an album that ended up selling 15+ million copies, and she won like 7 or 8 Grammy Awards. And if you listen to the lyrical content of that album, it still is the benchmark for how you make music. Are y'all with me out there? Well, Carter G. Woodson didn't stop there. In 1926, he created something called Negro History Week. Why did he pick February? Well, because 2 people that he believed were central to black history born in February. One was Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass, who was a black man born into slavery and escaped from slavery. Y'all should know this is basic American history. If you call yourself an American, you should know this stuff. You know what I mean? It's basic American history. Frederick Douglass escaped from slavery. He became an abolitionist, which is something you should have learned in the 3rd or 4th grade. An abolitionist, we want to abolish slavery in this country, because how can you say all men are created equal and you ignore, women, poor white people, black folks, Native Americans, Asian people, Latino people? Are y'all with me out there? He wanted to abolish slavery, second-class citizenship, being considered as 3/5 of a human being. The other person born in February obviously was Abraham Lincoln, because the perception was, again, that Lincoln was this great emancipator, and a lot of folks really believe that. I'm not saying that Lincoln didn't evolve, because he did evolve his thinking a bit, but Lincoln also, at many times, the original version of the Emancipation Proclamation, he actually considered putting in there language that would have shipped black folks out of America back to Africa. This is documented, And so when I meet people who call themselves students, professors, journalists, poets, etc., you can always tell people who read, who study, who travel by the conversations they have or not. You can tell who's a critical thinker and who's not. I was a journalist. Zeb is right. I've written for Huffington Post, CNN, Esquire, Rolling Stone, Vibe Magazine, final staff member. And I remember when I was in college, journalism students, journalism folks out there, they would tell us that journalism is objective. That's a lie. What you bring to journalism are the things that you've been taught or miseducated about from the time you were a child to the time you got to college. And if you see people a certain way because of their race, or their gender, or their class, or their sexual orientation, or their ability or disability, guess what? That's going to make its way into your article. For example, there could be some folks sitting here today who call themselves journalists. They're listening to me speak, and the first thing they'll say, well, Kevin Powell was angry. Now, how am I angry when the first thing I said here was, we are all sisters and brothers. I believe in love of all people. But if your perception of a black person, specifically a black man getting up and speaking his mind, means that he must automatically be angry and hateful, you need to look at the education that you got and the stereotypes that you swallowed whole. Are y'all with me out there? This is what Carter G. Woodson was talking about. And so when we talk about black history, it's actually American history. And y'all should think about this. And I said this to the students a moment ago. I went to the best schools in Jersey City, New Jersey, where I was born and raised. Kindergarten through the 12th grade, 13 years. In 13 years, I learned that Dr. King had a dream, and they didn't even bother to tell you what the dream was really about. And honestly, I thought, wait a minute, Dr. King, Montgomery bus boycott, 1955, with Rosa Parks. Remember that, y'all? And then I Have a Dream speech, 1963, and then you go 5 more years, he's dead, he's killed. Well, who was he, and what else did he do? This is why seeing the movie Selma is so important. Everyone in this room, if you call yourself an American, y'all need to go see the movie Selma immediately. I learned about Rosa Parks. I learned that George Washington Carver had some peanuts that he messed around with. Had no idea this man was a brilliant scientist. And Jackie Robinson, baseball. 1.5 pages of black history. Oh, black folks were slaves. 1.5 pages going to the so-called best schools in Jersey City, 1.5 pages in 13 years, black history. Next month is Women's History Month. Let's take it to women for a second, no matter what your race. I learned that Betsy Ross sewed a flag. I learned about Helen Keller. She was blind, she was deaf, but did we really learn who she was? No. You ask people today, well, who was Helen Keller? Well, she was blind and she was deaf. Most folks don't even know that she was this amazing humanitarian. She was an activist. She was a leader. She was a social change agent. You don't learn that. You hear the name Florence Nightingale. Remember her name? You might have heard, about a few other women here or there in your 13 years. And so the point I'm getting at, whether it's black history or women's history, there is something wrong with any country, any society, any place on the planet where you don't see yourself in history. You want to see someone with low self-esteem? Look at the education they got or they did not get. You want to see someone who is deeply self-hating and self-doubting and self-defeating? Look at how much they learned about themselves or they did not learn about themselves. Are y'all with me out there? You know, you want to find someone who says the most negative stuff about themselves. I'm a N-I-G-G-A. I'm a B-I-T-C-H. Then I guarantee you'll find someone who doesn't even know their own history. You know, who think that that's all they are because they've made peace with ignorance. And so when we talk about history, this is for all of us. And, you know, students and professors, the most important thing we can do, because people always ask me, well, Captain Powell, what is it that we can do to change this world? The most important thing you can do is to be prepared. Is to be prepared. Is to be prepared. But you can't be prepared if you don't read, if you don't study, if you don't travel. No way. You have no clue what's going on. Yeah, you could have a career, and Dr. Milewski, I don't have a career. I have a life with many chapters, because even a career puts you in a box. I don't want a career. What I want is a life with many possibilities, because I know I'm a student forever. There's things that I can teach y'all, but there's things you can teach me, because if you're born in the 80s or 90s, you have a totally different perspective. And in fact, y'all are the most brilliant generation that America and the world has ever produced, because y'all have been exposed to things that most of us couldn't even imagine. You know what I mean? But you still have the same responsibility that I had when I was in college back in the day, which is you got to read, you got to study, you got to travel. It's very simple. And so I'm standing here very clear that I'm an African, because that's who I am. Because when I got to college, because I didn't know anything, and I stumbled into the anti-apartheid movement, I didn't know what that was, what South Africa was, who's Biko, who are the Mandelas, you know, what's Ethiopia, what's Egypt, you know, what's Senegal, what's the door of no return? I had no idea. You know, what's Pan-Africanism? You know, who are the Maroons in Jamaica? Who's Walter Rodney in Guyana? Y'all feel me? You know, who's Sir Eric Williams out of Trinidad and Tobago? Yeah, who's Malcolm X, who was killed 50 years ago as of this coming Saturday, and how come I never even got to know his name growing up? Who's Nikki Giovanni? Who's Maya Angelou? Who's Mary Baraka? Who's Sonia Sanchez? What's the Harlem Renaissance? What's the Negritude movement? What's the Black Arts movement? Are y'all with me out there? Who's Nina Simone? Who's Fela? You know? Who's this dude Peter Tosh who was right there with Bob Marley? Who's Marcus Garvey, who led the biggest mass movement of black folks in this country other than the Civil Rights movement? You know what I mean? Who are we in the Dominican Republic and Haiti sharing this island together, yet we're fighting each other? How do we get here together? What was the first global economy in the world? It was called slavery. African people were kidnapped out of Africa and brought to this part of the world and separated and divided against each other to the point where you got us in 2015 still at each other's throats. You're on the same boats dropped off in different places. I learned all of this in the E-185 section of the library in college. And what it began to do is I'm reading George Jackson's Soledad Brother, as I'm reading Man Child of Promised Land by Claude Brown, you know, as I'm reading Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Are Watching God, I began to realize, wait a minute, man, before slavery, I had a history. It didn't just start with slavery, because that's the mythology people put out there, like you had nothing before slavery. Yeah, you did. The whole world. Y'all go to Huffington Post. There's articles there from anthropologists. Everything came from Africa, which means every one of you in this room is an African. Every one of you. This doesn't mean that you hate anyone. We don't practice hate here. We practice love. We practice peace. I practice love. I practice peace. But I had to learn who I was. And it's no different than someone who's Chinese or Japanese or Italian or Irish or Jewish. Whatever your background, you should know who you are. We agree there's one race, it's the human race. There's one family, that's the human family, but how can we come to the table of the human family if you don't know what you bring to the table? You know what I mean? How you going to sit at the table, you don't even know what you bring to the table? So when I hear people say, non-black folks and black folks, man, I'm tired of black history. I had one dude on Twitter going back and forth with me 2 weeks ago. I was so angry, I wrote a blog called #Why Black History Month Matters, because this dude was like, man, I'm tired of Black History Month. They gave us the shortest month. I said, well, who's they? He couldn't even tell me who they were. You know how we do, they. I'm like, man, it was created by a black man. He didn't know that. I said, do you know why it's in February? Yeah, because it's the shortest month. I said, nah, man. You can't just make this stuff up. You just can't freelance intelligence. You got to read, you got to study, you got to travel. You feel me? And I was like, man, you know, this is not a game, man. People died and sacrificed their lives so that we could actually be sitting here, people of different cultures and backgrounds, in civility. And the worst thing we can do is take this history for granted or act like it's irrelevant and back in the day. If it was back in the day, then you tell the man who chokehold Eric Garner to death in Staten Island, even as he was saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. You tell him it's irrelevant. Where are we in America? One, a month ago, we celebrated Dr. King's birthday. How many of y'all love Dr. King, love what he stood for? You can be honest, and if you don't have to hold a hand if you don't, now let me ask an honest question. How many of y'all have actually even spent time studying his entire 39 years of his life and really reading and studying and absorbing his speeches, sermons, his work, as Dr. Milewski said, his action steps around unity? That's the problem right there. People say, we love something, but we don't even bother to study it. And so it's almost like you got to decide, y'all, do we want to be leaders or are we followers? We just going to follow. They said celebrate Dr. King's birthday. We're going to celebrate it. Don't know what it's about. Don't know who he is. We're just going to celebrate it. You know? Well, Dr. King, since he was killed in 1968, over 1 million people have been shot by gun violence in this country. 1 million people. And there's violence everywhere. It's police violence against communities of color. And one of the things we got to stop saying, y'all, with all due respect to the men out here, that it's just men, because there are women of color who have been shot and murdered by the police as well. We are equals as men and women. We are equals as men and women. We are equals as women and men. We need to understand that. You know, this is not if we're outraged when a man gets shot, we should be equally outraged if something happens to a woman. We can't have this kind of selective outrage. Are y'all with me out there? You know? And so this violence is real all over the place. The violence is real when you see mass shootings. You know, the fact that someone can literally walk into this room right now, or someone can just get up and say, you know what, I don't like what Kevin Powell is saying. I'm going to pull my gat out right now and just start shooting, and there ain't nothing we can do about it. You know? But when I travel overseas to other countries, you know, they're asking me questions like, why do y'all shoot each other so much? Why is that cool? Why is that normal? And I'm like, my response is, well, this country was born in violence. The genocide of Native Americans, you know, what happened to black people, you know, what happened to working class white sisters and brothers who tried to challenge, you know, the founding fathers. Y'all go look up Shays' Rebellion, for example. You know? This country was born in violence, and so it's going to be violent. And I grew up in violence, and I don't want to be violent, and I'm not going to be violent ever again, because I believe in peace and love. But it took work. It took therapy, it took faith, and it took understanding we got to create what we want to see. You know what else it takes? It takes challenging. What I love is all the protests happening all around the country. I've been to Ferguson a couple times, like I said. I'm going back as soon as I can. But I know in New York City, we holding it down, you know? As Dr. Milewski said, we meet every week, every month, BK Nation. Y'all welcome to join us. We're not playing. You know, we're not just saying no justice, no peace, but we're like, we got to transform this society because this is unacceptable that you could walk out of this auditorium and you could be put on your back just because of who you are or shot because of who you are. That should be unacceptable not just to black folks or Latino folks, but all people. If you really believe we're sisters and brothers, if you really believe that we're equals, you should be appalled. You should have empathy and compassion for anyone who feels like their life does not matter. If you really are a human being, if you really are an American, you know? But it begs the question, where's our leadership at? Someone asked me that question. Students ask me that question all the time around the country. You know what my response is? Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror for yourself. It's not going to be someone famous. It's not going to be someone on TV and on radio all the time. It's not going to be someone who's always popping up when there's a crisis, someone's been shot. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The real leadership you're waiting for, borrowing the term from the civil rights movement, is y'all. That's who it is. But what's a leader? Because we can't just throw these words out loosely. Number one, a leader, she or he, we're equals, right? She or he changes the direction of the conversation. A leader changes the direction of the conversation. She or he creates a new vocabulary. Don't keep saying the same stuff we've been hearing 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. You come up with something new. What do I mean by changing the direction of the conversation, new vocabulary? I'm an African. I remember one time, I've been in places where it was all black folks. Didn't matter if they were African American, West Indian. I said, how many of y'all are Africans? Like 3 people raised their hands. I just looked at that like, man, you know what I'm saying, Dr. Reed? Like, all of y'all are Africans. But you got to learn that. I'm not a minority. I'm not underprivileged. I'm not disadvantaged. I'm not illegitimate because my mama and daddy weren't born. Are y'all with me? But when I was growing up, I was told that I was illegitimate because someone else felt they could define me. When I got to college, you know, in New York State we got HEOP. In Jersey we have EOF. It's the same thing. You know, I'm the first one in my family to go to college. My mama got a grade school education. My grandmama couldn't read or write. But they both were brilliant. They had PhDs in life. Y'all with me? You know? But when I got to college, to Rutgers University, for the first time in my life, I got called a minority and disadvantaged and underprivileged, a minority, disadvantaged, and underprivileged over and over again. It's no different than calling people over and over again ghetto or hood or trailer trash or poor white trash or aliens or illegal aliens. Are y'all with me here? You know, you put people in boxes when you do that. And I reject that. Underprivileged. Minority. I ain't no minority. I've been to 5 of the 7 continents on this planet, including Africa, and everywhere I go, I see me. So how you gonna tell me I'm a minority? A leader changes the conversation. You control the vocabulary. Number 2, if you're a leader, you build or you join and sustain an organization, an institution, a business or company, a movement, a coalition of different people. You build something. You build and create. If someone on this campus or out in the world calls her or himself a leader over and over again, you should investigate, well, what are they actually building? You heard what Dr. Molesky said. We have something called BK Nation. You can come to us physically. You can go to bknation.org. We are legitimately building something from the ground up. We're not waiting for someone to give us permission to do it. We are doing it. You build something. Number 3, if you call yourself a leader, you make yourself accessible to the people that you claim to be representing. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all got professors at this school. Only time you can see them is when they in class with you. You know, you got administrators running this school. The only time you can see them is when they walking around somewhere from a distance. Not all of them. But what I'm getting at, not just this school, but any school, if you're in a leadership position, you should be accessible, reachable to the people that you are representing. Otherwise, you're not really a leader. You're an elitist who's about your resume and your career and yourself, and you don't care about the people. Are y'all with me out there? Number 4, if you call yourself a leader, leaders make other leaders. Leaders make other leaders. Leaders make other leaders. The job of a leader is to make herself or himself obsolete as quickly as possible. Pass it on. Share the information. One of my mentors, Dr. Jerry Ward, said to me years ago, wisdom is not private property. Wisdom is not private property. But you got folks out there, I have folks come to me on Twitter and Facebook like, Kevin Powell, you shouldn't be sharing all this stuff. You should be charging for this. You should, no, man. No. I wish I knew this stuff when I was 18, 19 years old. I have a responsibility to share this information. If you're a leader, then you also got to have a plan, or what Dr. Molesky calls action steps. What you going to do? You know what I mean? And I'm going to say this because I have been a part of the protests, the rallies and marches in different parts of the country. If that's all we're doing, you ain't got a plan. That ain't it by itself. You know, if you go back and study the civil rights movement, they marched, they protest, they had sit-ins, et cetera. Those are important tools to bring awareness, to put light on stuff, but they also had organizations and institutions. You got to do both. You got to have a plan. You can't just say what you're against. I hear people all the time, well, I'm against racism. I'm against sexism. I'm against this. I always ask a very simple question. Well, what are you for? What do you want to see? And then that's when they stutter. And so I'm saying to y'all students, don't be like the folks I know outside of college where y'all have no idea what it is you want to see. Y'all are the most brilliant generation that we have produced in this country in the world's history. You have access to information on an iPhone or a Droid we couldn't even imagine. There's no excuse for you not studying the movements that came before you, the organizations that came before you, the leaders that came before you, the visionaries that came before you. You gotta have a plan for your life, for your community. Leadership. What else is leadership about? We gotta organize, organize, organize. Make it happen. Y'all got to figure out how to bring people together. We got to do that. You know? What Dr. Molesky didn't say is that BK Nation is open to everybody. We don't care what your race, your class, your color, your gender, your sexual orientation, any of it. We're all sisters and brothers. You know, we're about bringing people together, bridge building. You know? Now, are there certain issues that I work on that are specific to the black community or the black and Latino community? Oh, yeah. It ain't either or, it's both for me. Are there certain things I do that's specific to black males because I'm a black male? Oh, yeah. You know, and I ain't apologetic about it. Why can't I be when I know there's serious things happening in my community or specifically to black males? You know? But I also know the power of organizing different types of people. And I'm saying to y'all, you know, as we talk about unity, the black students here, or who are of African descent, y'all can't afford to get caught up in, I'm African American, I'm Latino, Afro-Latino, I'm West Indian. That's a slave mentality. That's a slave mentality. That's a slave mentality. And y'all should not want to be slaves. You know? That's a self-hating Negro mentality. Just how I have some of my Jewish friends who will say to me in New York, we have self-hating Jews, well, we got self-hating black folks. You know? We'll find every reason not to work with each other because we've been taught not to work with each other. Been taught to find the negative in each other as opposed to beauty and the positive. Are y'all with me out there? You know, and I know some of us don't want to hear it, but it's the truth. But it also applies to everyone else here, whether you're black or not. Do you put out positive energy and love? And are you about building bridges, or are you a bridge destroyer? You can't be both. And when we talk about leadership, the last part of it, anyone ever been in love? Anyone love themselves? Anyone love themselves? Anyone trying to love themselves? If we're serious about being leaders and having unity, you got to have some love. It's real simple. No love, no unity. You know? Now, you don't mean you're going to like everybody. There's folks I definitely don't like all the time. I mean, why lie, right? Be honest. I think leadership has to be transparent and honest, too. But you gotta practice love. And in my humble opinion, sisters and brothers, since we are sisters and brothers, that's a process, you know? I'm in my 40s, as I said to the students earlier. I've been doing this work since I was 18 years old, you know? And one of the questions that was asked, like, you know, how do you deal with challenging a system where you feel like, you know, it's never gonna change? Love. Y'all gotta love the people. You gotta love people. You gotta love people. You gotta love people. You gotta love the work that you do. You gotta say, you know what, if anyone is suffering from any kind of injustice, then it's affecting me as well. And I don't wanna see anyone suffer. Are y'all with me out there? You know, we got to love people. You know, it's really simple. You know, when I was younger, not age-wise, but emotionally and intellectually, I thought that Dr. King was mad corny, and I only focused on Malcolm X. I thought Dr. King was mad corny because he kept talking about love. Well, guess what? I realized that Dr. King was absolutely right. You have no love. It doesn't matter how much protesting and how angry you are. It doesn't matter how eloquent a speaker you are. It doesn't matter how well a writer you are. If you have no love for people, then guess what? You're going to sabotage any movement, any organization, anything that you were part of. Are y'all with me out there? You can't have any unity or even operational unity if there's no love, you know? And how do you find that love? It's back to reading, studying, and traveling. It ain't about organized religion. You can be any religion in the world. Some of the most hateful people I've ever met are religious. But spirituality is different, which is, do you understand that our souls are connected? Are y'all with me out there? You know what I mean? When you understand our souls are connected, then you'll think twice about how you speak to people, how you look at people, how you listen to people. You know, as I said to the brother earlier, I'm not into ego. It's about humility. You know what I mean? That we're all just vessels here. You know, I've written 11 books, got 12 and 13 coming out. I could say, you know, this is about, I'm good. No, but I don't think about myself because my life is irrelevant if people in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Manhattan, Staten Island, you know, Queens, Long Island, Westchester, New Jersey, anywhere in the world are suffering. How dare I think that my life is more important than theirs? Are y'all with me? And that unity means, for example, when I was in college, I didn't just join one organization. I made sure, here I am, African American, let me go hang out with my West Indian student organization. Y'all with me? Because I'm like, I need to learn about this history and culture too. Just as I'm learning Black American history, I need to learn Afro-Latino history and Caribbean history. Are y'all following me for a second? Because you ain't gonna have no unity if you don't even know who you're trying to unite with. Let me learn about the Haitian Revolution. Y'all with me? You know, when people say stop passe, I need to know what they talking about. You know? This is all important. And so unity has to be tied to love and a commitment to doing the work for the rest of our lives. No matter what your career or your occupation is going to be, are you going to be practicing that? That's how we transform this world. And so I want to thank y'all for the time. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. Dr. Molesky, let's bring the students up here because they are way more important than we are. Thank y'all very much.
We have put together a very exciting panel. By no means does not represent all leadership, but these are the folks who have been involved and who have been helping us to shape this wonderful event and discussion that we've had thus far. I'm going to just bring them up one at a time in no particular order. Kaylin Sims. Sociology major, International Studies, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Any alphas in the house? Uh-oh.
We'll be mad if they don't show up. Tell them I said that.
It's funny you should mention that. Anyway, all right. I should not have said that. Okay.
It's all right.
Randy Ferguson.
Good luck. You ready?
Economics major, music and technology minor. All right. Master of handshakes and, no, just
And
kidding.
finger snaps.
Yes. Recently quoted in Newsday. Okay. Charisma Ward Spivey.
Charisma.
Women and Gender Studies, Sociology, Cadence Step Team. Welcome. That's right, yes. Excuse me.
Hey, Charisma.
All right. Shari Plummer. Shari, who opened up the event tonight. English major, secondary ed, track, NAACP,
Oh, you're a runner.
Black History Month Committee, Black World Resident Assistant, also known as RA.
Yeah, track team here. Track team here.
Chenille Burton. Sociology major, Africana Studies minor, all right. Women's Studies, NAACP, Delta Sigma Theta.
Wow.
Wow. Oxfam Commuter Student Association. All right. Diana Green. Also sociology major, political science, journalism minor, affiliated with Black Women's Association. John Kinder. Did I say the last name right? All right, welcome, brother. We're really, really appreciative of this brother's time. Something very rare these days, a student athlete, plays football for Stony Brook, for the Stony Brook team, and who has come and shared his time with us today.
Starting quarterback.
There it is, that's it. I buried the headline on that one. Higher Ed Administration major. Diana Acosta.
Can you sit over here?
Diana's majoring in health science, pre-physical therapy, SOB, and Omega Phi Beta sorority incorporated. And last but certainly not least, Nate Carter. I have a while till he gets up here. I can. Physics, since he's got to do his thing. Physics and math major, Black World, vice president of Black World newspaper, NAACP, president of, okay, I'm not reading this right, Media Council intern, Stony Brook Television, and various other miscellaneous activities. So let's give them all a round of applause. I guess I'll just sit up here. All right. Well, we want to dive right into this. We've had such a good introduction and so much information, so rich, the presentation that we heard, and we have a lot to work with, I think you'll all agree, in terms of our discussion. And so we do have some questions, but we're by no means have to stay with only this, and we want it to be a free-flowing discussion. We do have microphones at either side of the auditorium. At the point when we open up for Q&A, please feel free to come up and ask a question and participate in this dialogue. So I guess the first question that we have here, and Kevin, feel free to chime in at any time or pose a question. First question we have here is, what does unity mean to you, and why is it important? And I guess yes, Randy, why don't you?
Guess me, yeah. Unity means to me love, as Kevin stated, even, very eloquently. Love is important, and I believe that when you put love in a perspective of trying to change something or trying to do something, love does bring out the positivity in that situation. So with unity, when you put in love, you get various amount of people that want to come out and want to work with you, doing something that wants to unite the thing that you really want to do. So I believe that's what unity is.
Hello? Okay. To me, unity basically means when you acknowledge that we all have a responsibility to each other as humans. And once you know that, you already know that it doesn't matter regardless of race or where somebody's from, that you kind of have a responsibility towards them in any way, and you should act towards them in love the same way you would do with anybody who you feel an immediate obligation to, such as your family member.
Okay. For me, unity means to accept our differences, not as something to separate us, but actually to unite us, and as something that is beneficial to us and helps us in whatever it is, whatever movement or anything that you're pursuing. Acknowledging differences and diversity, not saying, oh, I'm colorblind, or I don't see this or that, because that's what makes us who we are. But acknowledging that and respecting it, and just, I don't know, appreciating differences and using them to our advantage.
I believe that unity is selflessness, coming together for causes that wouldn't necessarily be of benefit to us. I feel like a lot of the times people feel like they need to be unified for issues that pertain specifically to them, but unity goes much broader than that.
I think personally, unity requires an understanding. So you need to understand each other, understand yourself in order to be successful. So what I think a lot of people fail to realize is that it's about love, like as everyone said, but it's also about understanding, because that will strengthen your common goal.
You'll have to forgive me for reading, but I just want to make sure I say everything I meant to say. Unity to me means togetherness. It means sacrifice. And what I mean by that, sacrifice, it means putting aside your own worldview or your own perspective and your preconceived notions and accepting others for, what they are. And there's a vulnerability that comes with unity because it's genuine, it's honest, and it's transparent. And then I later went on to say, unity is important because, as the cliche goes, there are strength in numbers, and there's power in a large group of people communicating effectively and highlighting each other's strengths, empowering one another to also work on areas of weakness.
This one's everybody.
What's going on, y'all? So, unity to me sounds like everything that they said, but it's an idea. You understand what I'm saying? It's more than an idea. It's like a bonding fact to me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to look like a person, dress like a person, talk like a person. You know, if you have one common idea, that you all can agree on, that's important, then that's unity. Like, I don't like my family, but we all family, so that's it. Y'all was too serious. Yeah.
May I jump in?
Please.
No.
He got a mic.
1, 2. I mean, they gave it to me. My question for all the students, what is affecting y'all now as you see what's going on in the world? Like, what's really been on your mind? Something that you'd love to change or that you actually are engaged in changing or like to see change? Anyone?
Personally, in the recent events with the Mike Brown cases and stuff like that, I really fear for my brother. My brother is 15 years old. Like, every day I think, this could be my brother. And knowing myself, knowing my brother, I know he's a good guy, but, thinking that something like that could happen to him, it really scares me. So last semester, we arranged a march, but I wanted the purpose of that march to be kind of to tell people that I want a solution for this. And my solution was reform in the police department.
That's right.
Because I believe, I greatly believe that it's not the policemen themselves, even though like a lot of it, they act on their own, but a lot of it comes from the way that they're trained.
Right.
And I recently, when I spoke to Eton's manager, she kind of told me that she was speaking with the head of the FBI, who happens to be an African American woman, and she said how they are trained to kind of be racist in the way that they profile their victims, which I found, which makes sense. It's like the way they see is like the bigger you are and the taller you are and like the more dark skinned you are, the more of a threat you seem.
Right.
So it's like if you have millions of police officers being trained that way, that's what's gonna give them, that scare. Like, whenever I see a tall black man or a dark skinned person, I'm gonna see red. I'm gonna see an alert. So I feel like it's a bigger issue, and it's an issue that I keep wanting to address, and I will in the future in a program that I want to do, in which I get the police point of view as well as have like the victims, and just have that conversation, because I feel like that's a very necessary conversation to have, because we see it this way, like, yeah, cops are bad, cops are this, but no, cops are necessary for, for our society, but we need to see it on a bigger level and have a conversation from their side and from our side. Because I'm pretty sure when we ask, like, oh, why they always shoot them in the heart or whatever, but that's how they're trained. They're trained to shoot, to kill. So it's like a lot of things like that, we need to go to a higher level and see how they're being trained.
One thing that's been really affecting me is difference, ignorance, and perceived barriers. And what I mean by that is people think that, oh, that's not my culture, so I'm not going to care about it. Oh, they're economically poor, they come from low income background, so I'm not going to care about it because that's not me.
Yeah.
And then the ignorance, when people don't understand or they don't know the history behind why we actually think the way we think or the things that we do in order to change something, they think, oh, I don't know why they're doing that. What's the point? It's not gonna work. And then that perceived barriers, it's not gonna happen to me. So I think that's really been affecting how our culture, not even just Black and Latinos, but Native Americans, Chinese, Japanese, from the Caribbean, Africans, and et cetera, has been dealing with situations such as Ferguson case,
Right.
you know, with Mike Brown, with Eric Gardner. So I think if we eliminate those things, or if we can work to eliminate those things, then I think we'll have a more inclusive community, not just culturally, but intellectually, economically.
To piggyback off of what Charisma said, I feel a huge issue is definitely ignorance. Like, I think it's crazy that it's 2015 and I can go on Twitter and see somebody saying like, oh, happy nigger day on Martin Luther King's birthday. Saying things like, oh, I don't understand why we have the day off when Black people don't have jobs anyway. I think that for 2015, we should be so far behind that, and it's kind of sad that we're not. And I feel like we need to stop seeing ignorance and not saying anything, not educating people, because ignorance is just, it keeps rebirthing and rebirthing because we're not educating people. So we need to stop letting ignorance just pass by us, and we have to like take a stand, because it's getting ridiculous. Because if in 2015 we think we're so, you know, ahead of the times, we're past slavery, we're past this, but it's a different form of slavery. So
Wow.
As a student, there are different things that I kind of view as an issue. As you mentioned before, you have a little brother. I have a little brother who's 11, and I live in a single parent household. So as a female in our family, like, we're not really sure what to tell him growing up. And yesterday, Shari had a program, and we listened to the Kendrick Lamar album, and he's actually pretty tall for his age. And one of the lyrics was, the darker the berry, then the stronger I shoot, or something, the bigger I shoot. So I fear for him because he's only 11 now, and he's taller than me. So when he does get older, how big will he get, and will he be seen as a threat? And another issue that I find is lazy and uninformed students, because I feel like we always push for people to come together and for different events to happen, and after a while, a lot of the things that we keep bringing up are said to the same people, because the same people keep coming. And I appreciate the support, but I just don't understand why this is a great event. Like, Kevin Powell is here and the Wang Center is not full. Like, that frustrates me. That really frustrates me, and I'm not really sure what we can do as students to move forward with that. I'm not even sure if that's something that I should have brought up, but that is something that we need to discuss and speak about, because that's ridiculous.
Let God use you.
Yeah.
I got two things.
Are these questions or responding to her?
No, it's responding to you, what you asked. No,
Okay.
what Mr. Powell asked.
But can we respond to her?
Oh, go ahead.
No, can you respond to her as a Black man?
Oh, I think that we need to have more accountability here. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I believe, that as students because the question was, what was the question again? Can you repeat the question? Because I don't want to say I know.
It's all right.
Oh yeah, about your brother, yo. The only thing you can really do is pray. Like, in all honesty, as being a Black guy from the inner city of Chicago with brothers and everything, like, I'm telling you, the only thing you can do is pray, because J. Cole, one of my favorite people, says straight A's don't fight strays. You understand what I'm saying? Like, regardless of if you're doing the right thing, you can always, you know what I'm saying, be at the wrong place. So it's literally about, you know what I'm saying, him keeping his head on a swivel. We live in a crazy world, like, you know, so, I mean, the only thing I can tell your brother is stay strong and just fight the fight.
If I could say one thing, when I was 15 and I was brutalized by police in Jersey City, me and a Puerto Rican brother got into a fight on a bus, and the bus driver panicked, and he called the police. Boys fight, it happens. There was no knives, no guns, anything like that. Boy, we just hand to hand. The Puerto Rican brother happened to be a fair complexion Puerto Rican brother. He was gently taken off the bus, and I was basically thrown off the bus, you know what I mean, as a young black male. And, you know, no one had ever said to me, Kevin, if you say X, Y, and Z to the police, they may do X, Y, and Z to you. And so I actually do think there's certain things that could be said. Now, this doesn't justify what ended up happening to me. I was handcuffed and put in the backseat of the squad car. Richie was in the front seat, no handcuffs whatsoever. My hands are behind my back. At that time, I might have been, you know, maybe 100 pounds. I was mad little, you know, a little dude, right? The officer, I'll never forget him, Officer Quinn, and I talk about this in my book, Irish American cop, yelled some stuff at me. I said some stuff back at him. And with my hands behind my back, busted my whole face open, my nose. You know what I mean? Blood everywhere. This is in winter, just like it's now. And my whole front was red, you know what I mean? And we get to the police precinct, Richie's let go, and I'm handcuffed to a holding cell. You know, call my mom's, you know, she has to come from work. She gets there, she's shocked to see her son bloodied, you know what I mean? The officers are casual about it. Like, you know, my mother's hysterical, like, what did you do to my son? What did you do to my son? They didn't even they didn't offer me treatment, nothing, you know what I mean? They finally let me go. Of course, I was charged with resisting arrest. That's usually the standard thing. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know what my rights were, et cetera. I never forget, me and my mother were on a bus to go to the medical center in Jersey City. The whole bus was black and Latino people, black and brown people, and they all knew. You know how they look at you and they just know this is probably what happened to the kid. And, you know, I remember a day or two later, we got a call from the NAACP. Some of y'all belong to the NAACP. At that time, I didn't know what the NAACP was. I didn't know what my rights were or anything. And so, you know, Tupac Shakur said something to me when I was at Vibe back in the day in one of our interviews. I said, Pac, why don't you just be careful? He said, Kev, there's no place called careful. It's in one of our articles. However, what Pac left out is that we have to tell our young boys and girls the truth. You know what I mean? It's never too early to say, this is the society that you're growing up in. You know, if you're a young person of color, you're gonna have to deal with racism your entire life. If you're a young lady, you're gonna have to deal with sexism your entire life. Here are the kind of things that you're probably gonna have to encounter, you know what I mean? If you're a young male especially, you may have to deal with racial profile. You may deal with stop and frisk. If you're a young lady, you may deal with sexual harassment in the workspace. You may deal with someone touching you inappropriately. The worst thing we can do to our children, to our young people, to our young sisters and brothers is not tell them the truth so that they're prepared and they're aware and they also know that they have basic rights. Do y'all feel me? You know, now, does that prevent us, you know, from what happened to me? No. But if I went back now, what I said to younger heads I work with, like, yo, I know you don't like the way the police are talking to you right now, but the worst thing you could do is to yell back at them and curse at them because that might get you smashed in the face like it did me. It might get you shot. I could have got killed that day. You know, I think about that a lot. I could have got killed, and they would have got off with it. You know what I'm saying? And so I just think we got to tell young people the truth, and y'all got to know your basic rights. You know what I mean?
Like Kevin just said, in terms of giving you advice for your brother, you and your mom, y'all are obviously women, so you don't know necessarily exactly what it looks like to be an African American male in this country. But like Kev said, I would just advise you to tell him know his rights, and you know, something that helped me extremely. I had my father in my life, but sports. You know, get him on a sporting team. That would really instill like a sense of discipline and order. I know being a college football player, we were up at the butt crack of dawn, 5:30, you know, working. And then once football was over, I didn't have anything to do, and I was like, man, I need something to do. Like you know, my whole life had been football up until that point, up until the end of last semester, and I was like, I really need something to do. And just having football and that constant regiment all the time, that had just instilled in me that discipline. So I would say that for your brother. But in terms of something that I see going on that I would like to change, like many people have said already, I have a younger sibling. I have a sister who is 16, and I'm guilty of you know, I dabble with World Star, I go on to World Star, I watch all that, but the vast majority of that stuff to me is so ignorant, and it's kind of like people really aren't seeing the underlining messages behind all of it all. Like they're really not, they're being blind, they're blinded. And it's, although it's entertaining, it's kind of a lot of it is ignorance, and it's just perpetuating that ignorance. And like, I don't know, that's something that I really struggle with, because although it is entertaining, I know a lot of it is just, it's dangerous. So.
Wow.
Go ahead.
I like what you said, because that was one of the things I was gonna bring up. I feel like that the structural norms that we have in this day and age, the norms that were put on by people before us, have made this generation so crazy that, you know, it's okay to say things out of line. It's okay for the police to you know, harass you. It's okay. You know, I take Professor Dr. Malinsky's class, right? And we were talking in class. We were like, back in the day, if you recorded somebody doing something to you, that's all the proof you needed. Nowadays, I got you dead to rights, still can't get you arrested. Like, you know, like how does this society, how does this structure, how does this system benefit me? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that we need to break down the structural norms that we have, because there's something undefiably wrong here. And until we address it, what I would like to see change is I would like to see, you know, like everything just hit the reset button on. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just,
I agree.
you know, because there's something going on. Like, I know I can't be the only one that see this.
Oh, no, you're not.
Okay.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
You're right.
I'm so glad you just mentioned that. You know, I think like sometimes when we talk about unity, right, this is the Unity Forum, we tend to think that means that as people of color or as black folks that we all need to agree on everything. And it doesn't mean that we have to agree on everything. That being said, you know, with some of the stuff that took place this year with Ferguson first and then the Eric Garner protests, one thing that always struck me is the willingness of someone to jump in front of a camera and point the blame back on black people. And I'm talking about black celebrities, black voices who we all respect. And that thing where they, you know, they'll say, like, well, this isn't the way to do things, burning your own property and burning your own communities and burning your own homes and that kind of thing.
Right.
You know, that to me, that maybe I would expect to hear that from other groups, but for when black folks are saying that to each other, how do we deal with that kind of thing amongst each other? How can we have a debate and celebrate our diversity, which we have in abundance within the black community, and agree to disagree, but at the same time, kind of move forward politically and make sense of some of those kinds of statements, I guess.
Those kinds of statements almost perpetuate, like,
Oh my gosh.
What?
sorry, nobody was cool enough, I had to speak.
I knew God was a woman.
Hello, I'm Sabrina. Hello. So I wanted to speak on what you just said. So that speaks to like the systematic racism that exists within this country. Many times it's put the blame on the person who's
Exactly.
the victim.
Exactly.
And that really works to the systematic things that go on in this nation. And I actually wanted to comment on something that Nate said earlier on the just pray. So, you know, that's really nice. I think that spirituality is a very beautiful thing. However, from the beginning of time, from slavery, that's what we've been doing, is just praying. And it's like how, continue to have your spirituality, but you need to educate yourself on the things that are bringing you down. And you need to speak to your legislators, you need to write letters, you need to do all of that, because the change is really in your hands of what you're doing in your right now, so.
Absolutely.
Can I respond?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Could we
Don't
stop?
go nowhere. Don't go nowhere. So in regards to that, right? Like I do believe that that spirituality does have a lot to do with it. But when you say things like we've been doing that for so long. When you do anything else, they shoot you down. And by they, I mean the man. You know, the man that put his foot on my neck. I'm saying, like, you familiar with the Black Panthers? You remember what happened with them?
Yes, I'm very much so aware.
So can you tell me what happened?
I didn't know this was a quiz.
I'm just,
Hey,
don't come at me.
I know
I'm
they
gonna
broke
educate
down
you.
the Black
You know what I'm saying?
Panthers from internally.
Well,
I'm
yeah.
very
No,
much
it's
so
it's
surprised.
unity because I'm trying to learn it.
Why don't you tell us what you think happened?
Well, they pretty much, they divided and conquered the Black Panthers. It started in Chicago. On the south side, it was, they pretty much went in and killed the guy, the head leader. They sent everybody else to prison. It was just like when they see something that can possibly alter the world, like they try to stop it. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, Barack Obama almost didn't make it because, you get what I'm saying? Like, nobody knows that he ran twice. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's real.
I do understand what you're saying, but I don't want to make this into argument, so I'll let this be the last thing I say. But I do understand what you're saying, and I'm very much so aware of what happened with the divide and conquer, but it's having that awareness that if another movement like that comes again, we know things like that happen, so we know to avoid them.
Go ahead, students first.
Also to acknowledge the things that did occur because of what they've done, not just the fact that in the end it was dismantled and whatever, but the progress that was made because of them. I don't think you should hesitate to make a movement like that just because it's failed in the past. Like, that's not how things change. Like, obviously you're gonna get pushback for whatever it is that you're trying to do, but
That's right.
consistency is what matters. And even if it failed the first time, remember the changes it made, the influences, the impact that it had on the Black community alone. Like, the Black Panther movement, like, I feel helped a lot of Black people and Latino people appreciate who they were, appreciate their culture, their history, and that alone was like a significant outcome of what they've done. So even that being said, it's not really a thing anymore. Well, they do exist still, but it's not what it once was. It still has an impact on what has been done in the past.
We also have to be careful of making up stuff as we go along. We need to study the Black Panther Party history. It was actually founded in Oakland in 1966. You're talking about what happened to Fred Hampton and Mark Clark around 1970 in Chicago, but it started on the West Coast, and it was a significant movement, and people got caught up in the visual of it. They were really like the hip hop of their day, their fashion sense, their style. People saw the guns. Well, why did they pull out guns? They were responding to racial profiling, police brutality in California. But the Panthers weren't about guns. They were about self-defense. It was like, if we're not going to be policed properly, we'll police our own communities. But on top of that, they had free breakfast programs, free health screening, et cetera. They had a newspaper. They had an educational component. And they were actually building up the self-esteem of the community, and it spread around the country. And I think with the sister's point about praying, I agree with as a Christian. I said at the beginning, I'm a Christian. But part of the problem is if we look at Black people in America, specifically for 400 years, if religion and praying was the answer to our problems, we would have been freed and empowered a long time ago. The way I was raised up in the church, God helps those who help themselves. And if we're gonna bring in this whole prayer thing, what I got from it when I listened to her speak very eloquently is that even the people who call themselves Christians, leaders in these times, these jokers are not even, they couldn't even touch a Dr. King or any of these other folks. Dr. King not only talked about it, but he actually practiced it and was doing it his entire life. In these times, we got these ridiculous mega churches that drain the community of money and resources. We got these folks who speak as mouthpieces for the communities, the ones that Dr. Milewski were talking about, who were telling people in Ferguson or young people here, they got to, don't be so angry, but they only show up when it's a crisis. And so, for me, if you're going to be a spiritual leader or religious leader, my question is always back to what is your plan and what are you actually doing for the community, whether they're Christian, Muslim, or any other faith. That shouldn't even matter. You should care because they're part of your community. And yeah, we should pray, but we should also be doing something because otherwise, Einstein said something very important that we should always remember. Insanity is saying and doing the same stuff over and over again and expecting a different result.
That's right.
Hi. Hey, Gabrielle. I just want to go back to the original question, what frustrates you? Kind of what everybody else said. About, my thing is complacency. A lot of people are okay with the fact that they don't know their history, and it's sad because I see it every single day, like somebody said on Twitter. People are saying ignorant comments, and to bring it back to like a more like familiar scale, love and hip hop. Look at how there are people who really aspire to be on Love and Hip Hop or live that lifestyle, and it's like it's taking us like 10 steps back. And it's like, and when there's shows like that and there's negativity like that and misrepresentations of that like that in the media, we're not really seeing who we really are, and it's kind of like, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's all right, take your time.
Yeah, it's like you don't really know yourself. You're stepping farther away from yourself, and it comes down to knowing yourself. Like, you can't even a person who doesn't care to know their history, you can't scold them for that. You know what I mean? Like this little tiff, piece. Like, you can't try to compare knowledge and be upset at somebody for not knowing what you know. Instead, uplift them and try to educate them.
Of
and
course.
What also frustrates me is the fact that it's so frowned upon to be uplifting, and it's like, oh God, what is she talking about? Oh God, what are they protesting about now? Oh God, what's the problem now? And it's so frustrating, and like all I can, like at this point I really don't know what to do but to just keep talking.
Keep going.
Keep talking about the same thing, because one day somebody's gonna listen. Because there are many occasions when I can only speak for myself, and many occasions when I do speak to people about history and about life and just knowing yourself in general, and they don't really have a response. But as long as you know that they're thinking, that's all that matters. Like, you raise some thought in this person's mind. It's like, just think. That's the most that you could like strive for. Get people to think, because that's where it starts. And then after they think, get them to write. Get them to write what they think. And that's how you get to know yourself. And once you write, you're more inclined to read. It's just steps, and it comes down to like, we talk about, we have to write things to legislators, and we have to write things to government. Absolutely. But it starts with us in our small community. Like, you can't, sorry, I lost my train of thought again.
That's all right. Well, maybe
Come on,
while you're thinking about that, maybe we can hear a response to the points that you just raised.
I actually had a response to what you mentioned earlier, Dr. Miletsky, about different conversations that are had about when we do things, how our own people sometimes scrutinize us. And I actually wrote that down. No, our own people.
Our own people.
No, our own people. I personally believe that there's a time and place for everything. I believe certain conversations shouldn't be had on certain forums and platforms. And what I mean by that is when Black people were speaking on looting and burning public property, and that kind of gives other people the right to say the same thing about us. And I don't think we should speak in public about certain issues before speaking amongst each other for a solution. And bringing back to the theme of unity, we can't be unified with other communities if we don't even have a unified front. So when people of our own community are basically talking down on us in a public forum, a lot of other people could easily take that and say, well, see, somebody who looks just like her saying the same thing, so why are we wrong? Your own people agree with us.
Interesting. I do want to just state for the record, as I said, this is by no means the representation of all leadership on campus. One of the problems, Kevin, issues is that we have a lot of folks here in the room who are also very vibrant leaders on campus, and I see you guys forming the line, and we're going to get to everybody. Only thing I do ask is that if we can make sure that we're forming toward a question for the panel so that we have a chance to respond, and not just the statements. Well, we're not censoring anything, but did anybody else want to respond to what I was going to say?
Yeah, just going back to what Gabby said, with media nowadays, especially when it comes to Black and Latino culture, it's like, to be very blunt, it's like we're a new minstrel show to America. We were talking about this, and I think it was an NAACP event back on Tuesday, about how media portrays us and how people see us. If you have a white suburban kid in Oklahoma and he's watching, or she's watching, Love and Hip Hop, Real Housewives of Hollywood, Atlanta, or New York, all the Housewives, right? They'll see how we are. Because I bet you never a day they'll ever seen a black person or even talk to a black person. They'll see what's portrayed on TV, you know? And it's sad because every time we'll see those kind of shows, we'll blast about it on Facebook, we'll laugh about it on Facebook, but yet we're laughing at ourselves, you know? We're the ones that are watching the minstrel shows and being okay about it, you know? And I think that it's time to change that, you know? I mean, with these slaves movies, I mean, Toby the Slaves, Book of Negro, don't get me wrong, those are great films. But it's time to see that while we're still going around the slave movies, we understand the history. We've seen it many times. We understand it's important, but yet movies like Selma, you know, why can that not be enriched or being viewed more? You know, I'm not gonna get into the Oscars because the Oscars is a totally different subject. But it's just the media in portraying us and see how our young kids are thinking about. Oh, if I get a big butt and I have to get a tattoo and I talk like Jocelyn, I think I might make some money, you know, instead of not education, instead of not fighting for the inner city schools, the public schools, who are not getting books. I have textbooks back in 2008, you know, not updating what's going on in Black history. We had like 2 pages of Black history in a textbook, as you said, in Jersey City. We still got the same thing here in New York City. You know, it's very prevalent. I bet you got the same thing in California or in Texas or Canada. You know, so I think we have to fight. We have to fight the media. It's gonna be a big that's a challenge, but we have to fight the media.
I have a comment. So just a response towards what you said about being complacent and like a lot of people tend to not care. I think the only thing that you could do is keep being yourself and keep being active like you are. For example, being Dominican, my mom, she doesn't really understand like why do I go to all these marches? Why am I so active? Why do I want to do so much change? She's just like, why are you always doing that? And anytime she hears of a march, she's like, oh, I know you're probably gonna go, be careful. But it's like over the years, she kind of sees how passionate I am towards it, so she starts to understand. So now anytime she sees something in the newspaper or something that happened, like she'll want to talk with me about it, like, oh, what do you think about it? She starts talking with it to her friends, which is weird because, you know, seeing my mother, she went to college, but, you know, she wasn't really exposed to like a lot of different cultures until she went to college and started working in the workplace with different people. And the same thing with my friends. A lot of my friends, some of them aren't in college, but you know, they see what I'm doing and they support what I do. And it's like they understand it and they will eventually understand and follow what you're doing. So the only thing you could keep doing is pushing and keep doing what you do.
I guess I do have a question kind of, but I guess it could be rhetorical, but you can respond if you want. Like, honestly, I don't know the answer. I'm still trying to figure it out, but like, what can we do to like, it's not just us. Like, at this point, I hate to say it, a lot of people are stuck in their ways. At our age and above, they're stuck in their ways. So what are we gonna do about the youth to make sure that they're not just so absorbed in just their cell phones and just absorbed in Instagram and just absorbed in all these misrepresentations of us? Like, what can we do? What can we do with ourselves to be the change? Like, what can you do every single day to walk around and, like, we all know that everybody in this room, I'm pretty sure, is educated on like Africana studies and just American history in general, but like, what are you gonna do to impact that without lecturing somebody? What can you do to impact that knowledge that you have on a stranger every single day? Like, it starts with yourself, like, so like, I guess you don't have to answer, but like.
Yeah, excellent. What can we do?
One thing that, going back to the original question about what kind of bothers me, passion. A lot of people don't have the passion that's lit in them. Like, it's almost like you have to kind of, in order to like fix that problem, you have to show passion. If you're passionate about something, your spirit, your vibe, your aura will bleed onto someone. Even if it's just a little bit, that's something that's like, oh my gosh, he's so passionate. I feel it now. I kind of want to follow in that footstep. And as far as children, they're the youth and they're coming after us and they're very impressionable at this age. So if we need to like kind of mentor them now, like for shows like Love and Hip Hop or whatever. I just started watching that show. I know that it's entertainment, and I know that it's wrong, but I know the difference. I wouldn't tell my sister, like, we watch it together, and my mom too. We know, okay, this is comedy, they're being funny, they're acting. But at the end of the day, we know where the issues lie. So she already knows, my sister, that's not gonna fly, you know what I mean? So I already instilled those values, and my mom instilled in me, and my grandmother instilled in my mother, that you have to know the difference, and you have to be passionate and aware. Awareness is kind of like the biggest thing, besides passion, that we're lacking, that's plaguing us right now. Because if you only do what you know, what's the phrase? You only do better if you know better, and a lot of it is direction. Let's say I'm young, I'm 10 years old, okay, my purpose is to keep learning, but if I don't have any direction and you pass and I don't know which one to take myself. If I don't know, like, the direction to take or the path to go down, then where am I going? I need someone that has walked down the path or knows the path to tell me, maybe you should walk down this, maybe you should go to the Schomburg Library and read on history. Like, somebody had to tell me that. Before someone told me that, I didn't even know it existed. And that's one thing that made me better, because I became aware, and I seen the passion that they had about spreading the awareness, and now it makes me want to do it myself.
We have another question. We have a question on this side.
I had a question that I want, whoever in the panel to answer, but specifically you, Mr. Kevin Powell, I wanted to hear your thoughts on it first. I read a report that black people have a $1.1 trillion estimate in buying power for the year of 2015. And I also hear reports that the money that black people make and generate don't circle around, not even once, within the community themselves. And I wanted to know, how far do you feel like we can actually progress, besides awareness, without actually investing money back into the community, but not just like by, building a new recreation center or something like that, but actually building like institutions or businesses that cater to ourselves. How far can we actually get if we don't take real, tangible economic and political steps to strengthen ourselves and our community?
It's an excellent question, and it's actually tied to the young lady, this man that was standing there. We have to be the models that we want to see in every way possible. As you were asking the question, I bring it back to reading and studying, because I know the history of Wilmington, North Carolina, of Auburn Avenue in Atlanta, of the Black Wall Street in Oklahoma, of these major corridors where you saw black economic power happening over and over again. You know that the examples exist. One of the things that bothers me when I hear people say, not you, but I've heard people say, well, black folks just don't know how to do these things. Like, no, we actually do know how to do these things. It's in our history, but it was taken away from us when the Civil Rights Movement did a very integration wasn't really the point of the Civil Rights Movement. To me, it was desegregation, which is we should have the right to go anywhere we want. We should be able to go to Stony Brook University. But some folks pushed us toward integration, which meant the collapse of our own institutions. You know what I mean? You see it across the board in every way possible. HBCUs in trouble financially. Ebony Magazine now being forced to sell its photo archive, which is insane to me. You know what I mean? It makes no sense. But there also is a question, though. It comes up, who has been teaching the last couple of generations financial literacy, basic financial literacy? You know what I mean? I can sit here and tell you I'm definitely a person who was deeply financially illiterate for many years of my life. What do I practice now? I'm cheap as hell. Or as we say in college, I'm frugal. You know what I'm saying, son? I'm mad frugal. My boy says, yo, son, you just thrifty, son. You know what I mean? But I also practice what I preach. What do you model? I support 90% of the vendors that I use in my life, my doctor, my lawyers, the assistants that I've had, they're all black. Does that mean that I'm racist or hate other people? No. I know when I go to Chinatown, I see Chinese folks doing business with each other. I live in Brooklyn, I see the Hasidic Jewish community doing business with each other. I go to Bensonhurst, I see Italian American folks doing business with each other. No community, no matter what you look like, has any kind of economic power if you don't support your own community. And so I think one of the questions we need to ask are, how many people in our own community are we actually supporting? And then two, what are our own personal spending habits? You know what I mean? What are we spending money on? And it's interesting because BK Nation actually partnered with the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, my brother Antonio Tejarino, and one of the partnerships that we created is with the video gaming industry. Why? We found that Black and Latino people play more video games than anybody else in this country, but very few of us are actually building the video games. We're buying the product. You feel where I'm going with this? And so we said we're going to create a fellowship for young Latino, Latina, Black brothers and sisters to actually build what they're playing so we could actually circulate revenue into our own community as opposed to just giving it away. And so it's back to we got to have solutions. And then the last part of it, as you were talking, is connected to this. You know, we got to use Twitter, Facebook, Instagram to share this information. It doesn't have to be a protest, it has to be a rally. If you come to my Twitter page, Kevin_Powell, and Dr. Zeb will tell you, every day I'm posting something. I think about what can I post that shares information, including financial information, so people can move forward. Otherwise, nothing changes. You know what I'm saying?
I just wanted to comment as well.
Sorry.
You're fine. It was awesome.
Thank you. Praise God, not me.
So there's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child, right? Well, it takes a community to build a community.
Yes, ma'am.
And many times we don't invest back in our own community. How many of us go to the Smith Haven Mall, right? How many stores are actually owned by Black people there or Latino people?
Right.
That's a great question. I don't even know. I'm gonna go look it up after this though. But, you know, we're not investing back in our own community. We're not gonna get far if we don't invest back into our own community. Not many people know that there was once a Black Wall Street that was burned down,
Oklahoma.
right?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
There was a bunch of Black millionaires and they had money, but it was burned down. And guess what? There's no longer that Black Wall Street.
Right.
But why not? Why don't we have a Black Wall Street? We can build it back up. But people don't want to put the time and put the money and put the effort in because they don't think that they're going to get anything back. But if we let people know that, you know, you're actually going to get something back, eventually more and more people, it'll build up and we'll be able to build our community. For example, yesterday EOPSA held a tutormatch.com program where we kind of speed dated students and tutors so that students can get to know tutors better, right? And then you'll be more likely to attend a tutoring session with a tutor if you knew them better. 10 people showed up. You know how many students are in EOP? You know how many students have below a 3.0 GPA? There's only 240 students that got above a 3.0 last semester out of all the EOP students. I mean, that was the first time we did that program. But that was us trying to invest back in our community, trying to build our students up, build their intelligence up, so they can be up here and in the audience, learning and knowing about their history and about how to invest back in our community like before. So I think if we keep doing this, even if it's a failing, like Shari said yesterday, you can always learn something from movements in the past, right? But if you keep doing it and you fix your mistakes, eventually our community will be built back up.
You know, we are getting a little close to the time mark, and I don't necessarily want to stop anyone from saying what they want to say. I don't want us, however, to leave here without everybody, including anyone from the audience, saying, you know, or considering the question, what are the barriers to unity here at Stony Brook for you all as leaders and all of us as part of this campus community, and what are we going to do going forward to improve that and to create more unity on this campus? And we're having a real discussion, people have been real, and this is needed. This is like something that has been needing to happen, I think, for quite a long time on this campus, and we thank you, Kevin, for bringing us to that point.
Thank you.
Maybe we can have another quick question from the audience, and then in our concluding comments, maybe just speak to that larger question if you can, real quick. Or that side, okay. Deferring to the lady from over there.
Well, my name is Samantha, and my biggest issue, is that, all right, so I'm a sophomore now. And ever since I got here, my first thing has always been, oh my God, you look like so shocking, whatever, because I do my own hair and I do crazy styles. So it's easy to find me in a crowd and whatever. And I'm very active. I would consider myself a leader because I reach out to many different types of people. I came to Stony Brook from Brooklyn Tech. So most of my friends, and I was the only Black person of my year to come in.
The engineers.
So, yeah. So
it's a Brooklyn thing, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Right. So when I came in with all of my Asian friends that I already knew, and my friend Janessa right there, she was the first black person I met when I came to Stony. So we had a group of friends, and we would always go out and whatever. So people were like, oh, you guys need to start something. You guys need to start something. You guys are so cool. You're always inspiring people and all that kind of stuff. So last semester we launched the creation of what is now our club called Brook, based on music, dance, performing arts, mostly around R&B, but we extended it out to many different genres. So after that, I realized that all the people who were saying, you guys should start something, you guys should start something, they disappeared. So my biggest issue is like people's willingness to invest in things. You know, like I don't see those same people that were like, oh my God, you guys should become something. You guys are so talented and all that kind of stuff. Like they're not showing that same support. I would say, and continue to like, you know, promote things, especially like the things we participate in, not just for us, but for other people. We get, you know, extensions from other organizations that are not only mainly African American people doing it. And when I promote those things, those same people who say, we would love to see you guys perform, they don't want to come to those things because they're not just about us, or they're not just about black people. So I don't know how to target that, because sometimes I go on rants on Instagram or Facebook, and people are like, oh, they like it, they comment, and they're like, oh my God, you know, you be going off, you go off, you go off. But at the same time, they're doing nothing and just sitting back and expecting to see great things happen from us without even trying to support our movement.
Okay, so those are some of the barriers as we were talking about. Yeah. Very good.
I'll go. I got 4 words to say to that. All talk, no action. People here in Stony Brook love to talk. They love ideas.
Wow.
They love to throw things at us. You're like, oh, you guys should do this, you guys should do that.
You should do it, not.
You know, right? Right? And us as leaders, especially the black leaders and Latino leaders, we listen to those. We listen to those ideas. And some of those ideas we'll take and we make programs out of it. We do clubs out of it, you know. But yet, as you said, there's no support. Why? Because they think that we're going to do it tomorrow. We're not going to do things tomorrow. There's certain procedures and things that goes on, so that way we can make it happen. You know, I'm part of the Brook. I'm the club. I'm the technician. But I remember when Samantha came up to me, and she said, "We're gonna start a new club here. This is gonna be filled with people just singing and dancing to R&B music." I said, "This is a great idea. It's a fresh idea. I think people's gonna love it. I'm definitely down for it." And when she told me it's gonna take some time, just trust me on this, be patient with me, and we're gonna get it up and running. It's up and running, and you know, and it's pretty good. It's a pretty club. But my thing is that people here are not patient. People are instant. People want things now, and we have to teach here in Stony Brook that patience is a virtue. I know you guys heard that line plenty of times, but it hits home so much, especially me being a leader. Patience is a virtue. Wait until you see it come to fruition. You know, you don't want nothing. You don't want the program that you told me that you want to do it. Why won't you do it? You know, why won't you put in the work? Why don't you become a leader instead of go back home and play video games that I now just know a lot of black and Latino people play constantly. You know, I know it's college. I know you go to class, you want to de-stress, and then you want to, you know, go to sleep or do your homework. But yet, if you want to do something, like my brother John said, you know, that after football, he goes to class. Other than that, what can I do? You know, and I know there's a lot of you in your seats right now know people that keep telling you all the time, what can I do on campus? What can I do? And you tell them, go to this, go to that, go to CSO, go to ASU, go to EUPSA, go to the RH programs, you know. But yet they don't show up. They don't show up here. No matter how many times we have to promote this on Instagram, Facebook, we tell you face to face, for the people, come out. It's a unity forum. Karen Powell's here. But yet, it's information that will be grown and being planted because we were trying to change Stony Brook. All talk, no action.
I agree with you. But also, you know, like as Kevin Powell said, as leaders, it's kind of like, oh, you want to see that program happen? Let's do it. If they don't have the leadership in them, kind of guide them. I'll be willing to be like, oh, let's do it. If you want to do it, I'm not going to do it for you. Let's do it together. I'll help you. In regards to Stony Brook, I think the biggest issue with Stony Brook is that we're so segregated. And in our minority group, I feel like we segregate ourselves because I never understood, you know, why is there an African Students Union? Why is there a LASSO? Why is there, you know, CSO, you know? Why is there like a club that unites us all? So it's like, you know, you hear about CSO having a fashion show, you see ASU having, why are we not having it together? Why are we not celebrating our culture together? Why are we not having programming together? I feel like nowadays we're collaborating more just because people don't come out to programs. Literally, you see the same 10 to 15 people at programs. And I feel like it's just because we kind of build that barrier. It's like you never see, it's very rare to see, you know, somebody of African descent or Latino at an Asian Students Association event. And when you do, everybody, you kind of feel out of place. And it's the same way, it's the other way. So it's like, I feel like clubs like that, honestly, they just segregate us. Because a lot of people just feel like, oh, why am I going to a CSO event if I'm not, you know, I'm not Caribbean, you know? I feel like that's the way people see it, and there's not something that kind of unites us all, even though I'm not saying like the flyers are meant, you know, just specifically for certain people, but I feel like that's the message that they do get. So I think that's the biggest issue, and that's why people don't really come out to like quote unquote minority events. But then you see like events like Asian Students Association having like 700, 800, 900 people coming out to their events. But it's because they have a broader and definitely more numbers on campus.
She's been wanting to say something.
This is this on? Oh, yes. It is on. This is in response to the unity question about barriers. And I think one thing that's a huge barrier are excuses in general. I feel this is my personal opinion on like the whole media outlook on Black people. I don't watch Honey Boo Boo and think all white people are like that. I don't go and see, you know, one kind of depiction of somebody or multiple depictions of somebody and expect that entire race to be like that. So I feel like that's an excuse. If people are like, well, this is what you are on TV, that doesn't mean anything. I've had people of different races be racist towards me. That doesn't mean the next time I meet someone of that same race, I bring that same kind of energy. Each person is different. Like, I feel like making excuses, well, oh, you know, Black people are always late. That's just because they're Black. Like, no, Black people can be on time. Like, we just make excuses and these barriers that keep us from uniting because we try to tell each other we're so different, and these differences between us are so huge that we can never be the same. And with thinking like that, we won't ever be the same.
Well said. I'm told we have about 10 more minutes, so we'll take another question.
Okay. So what I want to ask is, because you guys talked about it briefly, about mentoring the next generation.
Mentoring?
Yeah, you guys briefly spoke about mentoring the next generation and whatnot. And just off what you guys are just saying right now about being stagnant with the college students right now. For the next batch of student leaders, what advice or what tools can you provide them with about looking forward with the numbers that they do have with them to make an impact to the children that's in that local community, so they don't believe that they are just that stereotypical whatever's portrayed in the media? How can the college leaders, the student leaders feel the confidence to go out into the community to reach out to the middle-aged students while they're too busy focused or frustrated with trying to build a community within their own college campus?
You got two students that want to respond to this.
I'm sorry, what's your name, brother?
Vlad.
I think collaboration, Kev alluded to this earlier. He said, you know, he spoke about hoarding information. And did you bring anyone here with you today? I mean, not to call you out, but that's one thing that you could have done right there. You know, grab a friend or two, whoever. Hey,
He's a new
man,
dad.
I'm going.
New dad, by the way.
Well, congratulations on that.
So, busy man. I just want to say. I'm sorry.
Congrats on that, for sure. But yeah, just grab a friend. Like if you're going to an event or you're checking out a new club or an organization, just grab a friend. Be like, hey, I'm going to this. come check it out. You know, whether they like it or whether they return or not is completely on them. But those are just the stepping stones, and you know what I mean. And it's part of networking. So something I've challenged myself with is, you know, I was a member of the football team. I try to, as much as I can, organizations that I'm getting into, that I'm getting involved in, I try to at least, you know, make it appeal to them in some kind of way. Hey, man, this is, you know, there's gonna be there's gonna be some free food there. You know, come by, see if there's something that you like. So just try to find ways to make it appeal to the people that you're trying to reach. That's really my biggest piece of advice.
I told you, food is important.
Food is always
At least
good.
some snacks.
Yes.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. That's funny. I was gonna say the exact same thing. A lot of times, a lot of people, they tend to reach out. You know, like everybody up here dressed in suits. You know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody dressed like that. You have to meet certain people at that level. You feel me? Like, you have to be accessible to people, like he was saying earlier. Like, it's, you know, to reach out to the next people, you have to show them, like, look, you know, you can still, you know, do this, but do this at the same time. You can still walk this way and talk this way, but still, you know, be a part of something. Like, it's not just one type of leader. You understand what I'm saying? You have to show people. Right. It's more than one type. You know what I'm saying? You can be, you know, the smartest guy in the room, but nobody will know because you dress a certain way. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's we have to try to fix some of that stereotypes that we have based on ourselves. So, you know, you have to reach out to the person. I banged with that. You really have to reach out. Like, yo, I see you. You know, like, come chill with me.
That's a great point. That is a great point. And I want to also underscore the fact that in terms of reaching out, there's a lot of folks in this room right now, professors, administrators. We have chair of Africana Studies. We have professor of the history department in the history department here. We have folks like Dr. Watson and others who care. We care. Let us know how we can continually help you all to find that unity, which is not an easy thing to do. We don't want to say by any means this is easy. So, but we are here. You know, even myself. Most of you all know where I'm coming from and my background, but I have to talk to people. You know, if I don't reach out to people, they don't know where I'm coming from, if you understand my drift. So I had to learn a long time ago, and I don't always like doing it. I have to reach out. It's a very, very good point. I think we have time for one more question, if I'm not mistaken.
5 minutes left.
Hi, how's everyone doing?
Peace.
My question is, whether we're unified or as unified as we want to be or not, I guess my question is, what is the first step? You guys talked about action steps. What is the first step
Great
towards mobilizing, actually getting work done on campus, off campus? What is step one?
You want Charisma one to
perfect question right now.
To me, the first step is to be angry about something. Be angry about something that you want to see change. And then the next step is to tell someone about it. And keep telling someone about it. And once you keep telling someone about it, and you find those people that are angry, just as angry as you are, that they want to change something so bad that they go out and do it with you, those are the steps. Oh, I'm sorry. The first step is passion. I'm sorry. I missed the step. I missed the step. First step is be passionate about it. The second step is to learn about what you're being passionate about. The third step is to tell someone.
Someone else, students want to say something? Because I can wait.
I was going to say that one of the major steps would also be to, one, speak about it within, like I mentioned, within your community first, and then also reach out to faculty and staff, because I feel like a lot of the times we express our comments and concerns amongst each other, but we don't even know a lot of the people who are on campus who do look like us, who are fighting the same fight that we are fighting. So I feel like that's another thing. We need to really educate ourselves about the faculty and staff members who are around, who will be willing to help with, you know, different needs, because also it might not just be about time. It might be, okay, we might need $50 for flyers or something like that. There's people around who would be able to help us, like, get that.
I just want to finish off by saying that it literally starts with you, and just you having that passion. I feel like you don't necessarily need somebody else to start something. It starts with you. You really feel strongly about something. You tell yourself, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to do something about it. And slowly but surely, people are going to follow. And if you do need help reaching out, you reach out to somebody who you feel is going to benefit you, either with a flyer, you need to make a flyer, you want people to follow you, you want staff to support you. It starts with yourself. So literally, it does not take a lot to start change. It starts with you, and you already have yourself. So what else do you need?
I think a lot of people have the problem, they don't know what they're passionate about. And that's probably like the baby step, like the first step. Because if you don't know what you're passionate about, your duty is to kind of pay attention, pay more attention. Read like when you walk past bulletin boards, or pay attention in class, a article or something like that. Go to different programs. I think it's a good idea and a bad idea that we have the separate groups, because like Kevin said before, traveling. Maybe you can't travel like physically to different countries and states, but you can travel through the clubs, through the knowledge, through the experience that way. So that's a good way to look at things, to see what you're passionate about, because you never know. You might go to one meeting one day and it's like, that's for me. So I think that's the step, trying to make yourself available, make yourself seen and heard.
Jarvis, I know we got about 30 seconds. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but lastly, the last thing you're gonna hear from me is be cool with uncomfortable. Things that seem uncomfortable or out of the ordinary, be okay with that, because that's how you start to move mountains and push barriers. So I hope everyone understands that. Just be okay with things being uncomfortable, because it'll get good.
I like that.
If I could say one quick thing before we close out with everyone should say something, please. There's nothing wrong with anger. I think there's something wrong with us if we're not angry in this world. There's something wrong with anger. Is a natural human emotion. And one of the things I kept hearing in St. Louis County and Ferguson over and over again was certain folks telling people not to be angry after Michael Brown was murdered in cold blood. You should be angry about racism or sexism or discrimination or any form of oppression. There's something wrong with you. There's something inhuman with you if you are not angry about things that are going on. You should be angry that 1% of the world's population owns over 50% of the wealth on this planet. You should be angry about the fact that many of you all will be stuck with student debt when you get out here and can't get a job. You feel what I'm going with this? And so I think anyone who tells you that you shouldn't be angry is actually doing you a disservice, is actually ungodly, because even God is angry if you read the Bible. You know what I'm saying? If you read the Quran, if you read the Torah. The issue is it proactive anger or is it reactionary anger? You know what I mean? Because a lot of times we don't break that down. Proactive anger is doing a unity forum like this where you see an exchange of ideas. Proactive anger is we belong to organizations, we do stuff in the community, on campus, outside the campus. Proactive anger is let's bring people together who share similar feelings, etc. Reactive anger is the hatred and the ignorance that we've been talking about tonight. And so I think we've got to make a distinction, but never repress yourself, to the point where you think there's something wrong with you because you're feeling all this emotion. You should feel this emotion if you're in touch. The other thing I need to say really quickly is that, let's not play this numbers game. I've done speeches in front of 5,000, 10,000 people. I've done speeches in front of 5 people. I will give the exact same amount of passion no matter how many people are out there. It's not about the quantity of people, it's about the quality of the people in the room. 3 to 4 years I was at Rutgers University, we had programs where we were happy if we got 15 to 20 people. But some of the points that were said here, we've realized at a certain point, you know what? We got to be accessible leaders to the folks. Here we are talking all this stuff about what's going on campus. None of us went to parties. We said we need to party. We're young people. Let's party like everybody else. Let's actually stop acting like we're not young, and let's enjoy ourselves as we're student leaders. Y'all feel me? Let's have some food or snacks at our events. Let's ask the students who don't come to the events, well, what do y'all want to do? As opposed to just dictating it. You feel what I'm saying? And that might mean saying, let's have a Super Bowl party. Let's have a Scandal watch party. Let's have a Love and Hip Hop party. But then you turn it into a conversation about real love and real hip hop. Y'all feel what I'm saying? You got to flip it. So I think we got to be creative with stuff, you know what I mean? And think outside the box.
I think, yes. I think that is a great place to leave it. And
can we hear that?
And we can definitely, does anyone else want to add anything or say anything? Any concluding thoughts? I think.
Are y'all sure? Yeah. No, don't say that. Please stop talking like that. Please.
Randy, do you want to say something? I see you got the mic.
You're amazing. I mean,
no, we are amazing.
We do want to thank you, though.
Yeah. Can we say we are amazing?
We are.
We are amazing.
Well, we do want to thank you, Kevin. We want to thank all of our panelists, and we want to thank all of you for coming out.
Thank y'all.
Huh? Oh, and an announcement real quick, yes.
Hello, everyone. As mentioned before, I'm a member of the NAACP chapter here on campus. On Sunday, we're having our annual Image Awards that are happening in LDS at 7 p.m. Please come out. It's a semi-formal event, an excuse to dress up, and as Kevin Powell said, we're young, so we should take advantage of that. Thank you. And there's food, free food.
And also, that reminds me, don't forget, we do have the closing ceremony for Black History Month next week on, somebody help me?
26th, 25th.
Yes.
There's gonna be food.
Wednesday.
And
There will be
performances.
Free food.
Yeah, Wednesday from 7
bring
to
somebody.
10.
Yeah.
8 to 10. Thank you, Jarvis.
Yeah. All right, thank you all so much. Good night, get home safe. Including Barack Obama, Ronald Reagan, and the Ghost of Dr. King, blogs and essays. Some of us academic folks would kill to have like 1 or 2 books, you know. He's a very busy man. Among his upcoming books will be a memoir of his very interesting and difficult childhood and youth to be released in 2015 by Simon & Schuster. And in 2016, he will publish a biography of Tupac Shakur, the late rapper and controversial American icon. Kevin Powell is one of those people who you might see when you turn on CNN, or you might see on MSNBC, or any number of other venues when hip-hop or youth activism or young people are discussed. He has been a steady and constant voice of conscience in this country about social justice and about issues pertaining to social justice. His accomplishments are so numerous, and we could go on and on with some of the things that he's done. But I just wanted to sort of speak from the heart. The organization that he runs, or he's president of and founded, BK Nation, is an organization that's pulling together folks who, many of whom, you know, like are very picky, are choosy about which causes and which political things they would like to get involved in. As you know, we're all very busy, and the people that he pulls together are people who are conscious in their choice to do the kind of work that he has led and blazed a trail for. I've never been to a BK Nation meeting or event where we didn't talk about solutions and actions at the end, action steps. I've never been to a BK Nation meeting where we didn't feel a sense of almost of being in church. I've never been to any BK Nation events where every person in the room did not feel valued, welcomed, and loved. And that, to me, is a very rare thing. So without any further ado, I'd like to bring up Kevin Powell, BK Nation, and BK is in the house.
Thank you. What's up? What's up? Can we turn it down a little bit? Hello? How's that? It's not mad echoey, right? Was that all right? All right. How y'all doing? All right, all right. I'm good, thank you. I'm really going to say a few things, but most importantly, we're going to hear the students' voices. Let's give them a round of applause. That's what's important. I want to thank God first and foremost for this opportunity. I'm a Christian, but I'm never so religiously arrogant to assume that everyone in the room is a Christian. If there's Muslims in this room, if there's Jewish sisters and brothers in this room, if you're Buddhist, if you're Rastafarian, even if you're atheistic or agnostic, you have that right as well. I just hope we all can say that we're sisters and brothers. Can we agree to that? Yeah. Right on. I want to thank Dr. Miletsky and Dr. Watson. Let's give them a round of applause. Where are they? All right. I want to definitely thank the Black History Month Planning Committee for having me. I know y'all had my sister, Soledad O'Brien, here the other day, and we've done a lot of work together, and I got mad love for her. I want to thank the Office of Multicultural Affairs, led by Dr. Cheryl Hamilton. Did she change her name? Someone gave me the wrong name. Oh, it's 2 Cheryls. Whoops. Cheryl Chambers. I apologize. Well, y'all forgive me for that. All right. Who runs the Department of Africana Studies? I ain't gonna say the name then. That's right. Dr. Tracy Walters, thank you. Dexter Bailey, and Stony Brook University, and all the students here. I just want to thank y'all for this opportunity. I want to say a few things that I think are some food for thought, you know, since we're students, and we're all students for life. And one of the things I'll say, and I appreciate Zeb, the introduction, thank you so much for that. The BK in BK Nation does not stand for Brooklyn, even though I'm from Brooklyn. I wish it did. It doesn't stand for Burger King, you know what I'm saying? It stands for building knowledge, you know, because we're all students and teachers for the rest of our lives. Are y'all with me out there? You know, and so we're gathered here for a few reasons. February, obviously, and y'all have talked about this already, is Black History Month. And one of the misnomers is that Black history is just for Black folks. I mean, literally, I've been on the road since January 8th, and after this, I got a few days off that I'm going to Ohio, to Michigan, to California, just nonstop travel, doing speeches and workshops, and as Dr. Molesky said, you know, this is about action steps and solutions. Can we bring the mic down just a little bit, please? Thank you. And a lot of folks I realize out there have no idea who created Black History Month, you know? And this has been kind of sad to me over the last couple of weeks, because also people have been asking the question, do you think Black History Month is still important? Is it still relevant? That's like asking if Women's History Month is irrelevant. Am I right, ladies? You know what I'm saying? And it's like asking if Jewish history is relevant. Is Italian history relevant?
So, thank you.
Everybody. We give Shari another round of applause. It is my privilege and honor to welcome everybody to this year's Unity Forum. My name is Dr. Zebulon Miletsky. Most of you know me because a lot of my students are here tonight. Yeah, give that a round of applause. You know, about that, we just started a few weeks ago, and so a lot of you guys are new students, and it means that much more to me that you made it out and came out tonight on faith, and it really, really means a lot to me to see so many familiar faces in the room. This year, in the planning process for Unity Forum, we talked about a number of things. We wanted it to be dynamic. We wanted it to be real. We wanted this to be an honest discussion about issues that are relevant to students on this campus, not only here, but in our communities, this campus, and the world. And there's much going on, as we all know, in our world at this time. And so we, in doing that, discussed who could we bring here, who could we have come to this campus to lead us in an honest discussion, a frank discussion about some of the things that are happening in our world. And that led us to one name, which is Kevin Powell, who is here with us this evening. And I think we should. And it's my privilege to introduce Mr. Powell, or Kevin, as I know him. Kevin Powell has one of those people who has had many careers over one career, and has been actually in the room, if you will, and on the scene at the birth of many important movements, hip-hop being one of them, social activism, and journalism, hip-hop journalism, that is. Kevin Powell is one of the most acclaimed political, cultural, literary, and hip-hop voices in America today. He is the author of 11 books.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 2015 Unity Forum. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. Yes. Okay, so perception. Perception is the way we interact with the world around us and the people in it. But it also makes me wonder, how many legs does that elephant have? Whether this is a woman's face or a man playing a saxophone. Unfortunately, perception also makes some of us think that these are gangbangers. He's a terrorist. He probably runs a drug cartel somewhere in Mexico. And she's probably in an abusive relationship. So perception works by taking in sensory images and understanding them via our beliefs and our past experiences, oftentimes even distorting the images we see. Although perception helps us live full lives, it can sometimes lead us astray and turn a man reaching for his wallet into a man reaching for a gun. But on a lighter note, perception also helps us decide who we think we can get along with, who we think is smart, who might share our interests, and who we think could make a good friend. But perception doesn't always play matchmaker. Many times it informs us about people we think we should avoid and people we don't think we can get along with. Now, perception can sometimes help us, well, oftentimes help us lead full lives and experience the world around us. However, as we saw, it can sometimes be deceiving. If you haven't figured it out yet, my point is that people oftentimes aren't the people you may perceive them to be. Oftentimes, it is our misconceptions of people that stop us from building meaningful relationships. It is misconceptions and errors in perception that lead to deaths of Mike Brown, Eric Garner, John Crawford III, and so on. Today, we are here to discuss unity and how we, as student leaders, can foster it on our campus. Perception, I believe, is a vital factor in building relationships with others, but is not the only one. Today, we hope you all can walk away with new ideas of what unity means to you and how you may be able to take away new ideas about how to best promote it on our campus and in your individual lives.
Is Filipino or Chinese or Japanese or Native American history is relevant. All of us are equals in this room, which means all of our histories are relevant, right? Are y'all with me? Which means, we have to ask a fundamental question, whether you went to public schools and you were miseducated or whether you paid to be miseducated and they called them private schools. If you grew up learning that Columbus discovered America and they conveniently left out that he and other so-called explorers actually committed genocide against indigenous people that we now call Native Americans, you were miseducated. If you grew up being taught that Washington was the father of this country and it was conveniently left out that he and many of the other founding fathers, heck, all of them, and 12 of the 44 United States presidents were slave owners and slave masters and actually engaged in slave trafficking, then you were miseducated. If you grew up learning that Lincoln freed the slaves, which is not true at all, then you were miseducated. There were speeches where he sometimes was against slavery. There were speeches where he was sometimes for slavery. And the reason why he eventually pushed through the Emancipation Proclamation is because the Union looked like it was going to lose to the South, and they needed some soldiers. There were 200,000 black folks who fought in the Union Army. Are y'all with me out there? And so black history was created, which is American history, because you can't separate the two, just like you can't separate American music for black music, because if you take away hip-hop, soul, rock and roll, blues, spirituals, reggae, reggaeton, salsa, calypso, merengue, y'all with me out there, you would lose a lot of music in this country over the last 100 years. And so when we talk about Black History Month, it's actually American history. And if you call yourself an American, and one reason I'm so fired up is because I was coming here from Brooklyn, I listened to 1010 Winds, and Rudolph Giuliani, the former mayor, who was a racist when he was mayor, so many black and Latino males were blown away by the police, and he would get on the news and say, oh, they weren't a choir boy anyway. This is the stuff he would say. I actually had the audacity to get on the news today, over the last 2 days, and say that Barack Obama doesn't even like his own country. And this is part of the reason why we have issues in this country, because there's nothing wrong with ignorance. Ignorance just means that you don't know something. But there's something wrong with what I call enthusiastic ignorance, where not only are you ignorant, but you are rolling in that ignorance and you're spouting that ignorance in front of people. And to me, sisters and brothers, education is about love. A man named Carter G. Woodson created what became known as Black History Month. Carter G. Woodson didn't even get out of high school until he was 22 years old. He was the second person of African descent in this country to graduate from Harvard University after W.E.B. Du Bois. And this man decided to dedicate his life to